The room smelled like oil, rust, and something worse, fear. It was a hidden auction market on the edge of a dead moon, far from any law or kindness. Red lights flickered above dirty metal cages. Traders from across the galaxy filled the hall, some drunk, some bored, some cruel. Inside one cage stood a thin alien woman. Her name was Silari, but here she had no name, only a number. Lot 57. Her skin, once a glowing blue-silver, was now dull. She had bruises on her arms. Her long white hair was tangled and covered in dust. A metal collar blinked red around her neck. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't move. To the crowd, she looked broken. "All right, scum," the auctioneer shouted, his long teeth flashing as he laughed. "Next item, some leftover. Junk from a failed noble house." He slammed his hand against the cage. "This here is Lot 57, rare species, high-class blood." Or so they claimed. He laughed again. Some in the crowd chuckled with him. "She doesn't talk. She doesn't fight. She just stares at the wall. Worthless to most, unless you like quiet company." Someone shouted, "Start the bid at 10 credits." The auctioneer sneered. 10? For this? No one's touched her in months. Let's be honest. Starting bid. 1 credit. More laughter. One alien threw a drink at the cage bars. Silari didn't flinch. In the back of the crowd, a human man stood still. His name was Jason Keller, a salvager from Earth. He wore an old flight jacket and boots stained from years of work on wrecked ships. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous, but he had seen enough pain to recognize it in others. He looked at the girl in the cage. Something about her, her silence, her stillness. It didn't feel like weakness. It felt like restraint. "Anyone?" the auctioneer shouted. 1 credit. She's eating space in my cage." Silence. People turned away, bored. The auctioneer raised his hand. "All right, we'll scrap her for organ testing." "I'll take her," Jason said quietly. The crowd turned. The auctioneer raised a brow. "What was that, human?" "I'll take her," Jason repeated louder. 1 credit. Someone behind him laughed. "Wasting money on broken trash, are we?" Jason didn't answer. He walked forward and held out a small chip. 1 credit. Paid. The auctioneer shrugged. "She's yours. No refunds." The cage door buzzed and opened with a hiss. Silari didn't move. Jason stepped in slowly. He knelt in front of her and held out his hand. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. "Let's get out of here." For a second, nothing happened. Then, slowly, painfully, she reached out her hand and touched his. He wrapped his fingers around hers and led her out of the cage. No one clapped. No one cared. Except him. Outside, the stars shone cold over the junkyard moon. Jason helped her onto his small transport ship, the Ember Light. She sat quietly in the corner, wrapped in a blanket. She still didn't speak. Jason gave her water. She sipped it without a word. He placed food in front of her. She stared at it. "It's not poisoned," he said. Still nothing. He sat across from her and spoke calmly. "I don't know your story, and I won't ask unless you want to tell it. But you're safe now." She looked up for the first time. Her eyes were glowing violet, and in that single look, Jason felt it. This girl wasn't broken. She was waiting. Jason left to check the controls. A hidden camera deep in the market sent a signal. Facial recognition, Jason Keller, human salvager Lot 57, active collar still linked to former owner status, asset stolen, notify buyer. In the silence of space, as the ship drifted away from the moon, Silari finally whispered 1 word. "Why?" Jason, standing nearby, turned and replied, "Because no one deserves to be thrown away." The stars outside the ship glowed like cold fire. Inside, Silari sat in silence, wrapped in a blanket, her back against the wall of the small medical room on Jason's ship. She hadn't spoken again since that 1 word. "Why?" Jason didn't press her. He just moved around the ship, checking fuel lines, fixing a rattling vent, preparing warm food she might not even eat. He knew trauma. He'd seen war. But something about this girl was different. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She simply watched, like someone waiting for something to begin. Jason placed a tray beside her. Soup, warm bread, and a bottle of clean water. "I don't know what your species eats," he said, "but this helped a sick Trakari once." Sailari blinked slowly. Then, without a word, she reached out, picked up the spoon, and took a small bite. She didn't gag. She didn't spit it out. She ate. Quietly. Carefully. Like someone who hadn't been allowed to eat for themselves in a long time. Jason smiled and sat nearby, not too close. "That's better. Progress." She finished the bowl slowly, then set it down. A long silence passed, then her voice came quiet and flat. "You will get nothing from me." Jason raised his brow. "I didn't buy you to get anything." "Everyone does," she said. "Not me." She looked at him, studying his face. Then, "Why?" Jason leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Because no one else did. Because they called you broken, and I don't believe it." She looked away. Her hand moved to the collar still locked around her neck. Jason noticed. "May I?" he asked gently. She didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. Jason took a small tool from his belt and slowly worked on the collar's lock. It sparked once, twice, then clicked open. He set it aside and said softly, "You're not property anymore." Sailari touched her neck where the metal had been. No burn, no scar, but still, it felt heavy. Jason stood. "You can rest in the med pod. It's warm, and the AI won't bother you." She asked, "And if I try to take the escape pod?" Jason smiled faintly. "Then I'll wish you luck, but I hope you'll stay." She didn't answer. That night, Jason lay in his small bunk. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the engines. His mind kept going back to her face. Not afraid, not angry, just hollow. He didn't know her story yet, but he knew one thing for sure. She hadn't been saved. She had just begun to wake up. Elsewhere, on the same moon where Sailari was sold, a transmission played inside a dark room. A rich alien male watched it, his eyes narrow, his hands folded. He was the one who had last owned her. And now, someone had stolen his property. Human vessel identified, Jason Keller, independent salvager. Location, en route to neutral territory. The alien smiled coldly. Then send a message, retrieve the asset, and kill the human. The next morning, Sailari stood at the main window of the ship. She had changed into a simple gray shirt and soft pants Jason had left outside the medpod door. She didn't say thank you, but she wore them. Jason walked in, yawning, rubbing his eyes. "You sleep?" he asked. "No." He pointed at the stars. "We're about 12 hours from Yona Station. It's neutral space, no slavers, no bounty trackers." She didn't look away from the window. "They will come anyway," Jason nodded. "Yeah, probably." "You're not afraid?" He shrugged. "Been afraid my whole life. Doesn't stop me from doing the right thing." She looked at him again, this time, longer, then said something that surprised them both. "My name is not Lot 57. Jason grinned. "Didn't think it was." She turned fully toward him. "It's Sailari." He stepped forward and held out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Sailari." She looked at his hand, then slowly reached out and took it. It was the first time she touched someone without being forced, and in that quiet moment something deep inside her chest stirred, a feeling she hadn't known in years. Not fear, not anger, trust. But far behind them, in the shadow of a drifting black ship, a voice hissed into a comm unit. "We've found the human. Prepare boarding crew. Bring the girl back alive." Because Sailari wasn't just a runaway, She was something much more dangerous, and the galaxy wasn't ready for her. The ship moved quietly through deep space. Inside, Sailari sat at the workbench holding a strange tool. She didn't ask what it was. She just studied it, turned it in her hands, then slowly began helping Jason repair an old oxygen valve. She hadn't said much since giving her real name, but her actions spoke louder than words. She was watching, learning, rebuilding herself. Jason glanced over from the cockpit. You know, for someone who was supposed to be broken, you fix things faster than I do. Sailari didn't look up. Broken things know how to put other broken things back together. Jason chuckled. That's deep. She returned the tool silently. Later, while Jason rested, Sailari walked through the ship. She found a shelf full of old books, real paper ones. Human novels, history journals, maps of stars. She picked one, Human Survival and Emergency Response. She flipped through pages about food, shelter, defense. She read faster than Jason expected. Hours later, she was in the engine room, tightening screws on a broken heat pump without being asked. Jason entered and watched her work. You've done this before? She paused. Not with my hands. He blinked. Then how? She touched her temple. My mind remembers. My body follows. Jason frowned. Like muscle memory? No, she said. Like trained thought. That night, while eating their quiet dinner, Jason placed a small device on the table. This is a translator, he said. It'll let you speak in any language if you want. I can already speak yours, she replied. He smiled. Then why didn't you talk before? Sailari looked up. Because when I spoke, they listened. And when they listened, they feared me. Jason paused. He leaned forward. What did they fear? My silence, she said. They thought it meant I was empty, but I was watching, waiting, and when they tried to use me, I broke their minds. Jason sat back slowly. You're telepathic? Partially, she said, but more than that, I connect to machines, to people. I feel what they feel, hear what they don't say. Jason nodded. That explains the way you handled my ship's systems. You weren't guessing, you were understanding. She tilted her head. You're not afraid? He smiled. Should I be? She stared at him for a moment, then said, Not yet. Suddenly, warning lights flashed. The ship AI spoke. Unknown vessel approaching. No transponder ID, possible threat. Jason jumped up. Knew they'd come. Sailari stood slowly. I told you. They never let go. Outside, a black ship slipped from the shadows. No lights. No signal. Just intent. Inside the ember light, Jason armed the defense system. We're not fast enough to outrun them. Then don't run, Sailari said. He turned to her. What do you mean? She walked to the console and touched the control panel. Her eyes glowed faint violet. The ship's lights dimmed, then changed. The engines purred smoother. The shield system began recharging faster than usual. Jason stared. What are you doing? I'm asking your ship to protect us, Jason whispered. And it's answering. Outside, the enemy ship fired a boarding spike. The ember light shook. Jason grabbed his weapon. We need to lock down the engine room. But Sailari didn't move. She closed her eyes. Her voice was calm. I'll speak to them. Jason watched as she walked to the cargo bay doors. She placed her palm on the inner wall. Her eyes were glowing brighter now, hot violet. She whispered something in her own tongue. The moment the enemy boarding crew cut through the hatch, Sailari spoke directly into their minds. You took my name. You took my freedom. You called me worthless. Now feel what you created. The mercenaries screamed, not from pain, but from the weight of her memory. They saw what she had lived through. They felt every collar, every cage, every cruel laugh, every hour spent forgotten. One dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. Another ran back to the ship, shaking. The rest collapsed under the force of her mind. Jason stood frozen. She hadn't moved an inch. She had won the fight. Without touching anything, she turned back to him slowly. Her glow faded. They won't come back. Jason breathed out. Remind me not to ever play cards with you. She smirked, just barely. But it was a smile, the first real one. As they cleared the wreckage and Jason repaired the hull, Sailari whispered to herself, I was quiet because they made me small, but I was never meant to stay that way. Because now, she was ready to unleash the full truth of what she was, and the galaxy wouldn't be ready for it. The Ember Light drifted, in orbit above a dead planet. Its hull was scarred from the attack. Burn marks covered the side. One of the rear engines flickered with low power. Inside, Jason was lying on the repair floor, tightening a fuel line with a groan. Next time, he muttered, we hide in a quiet part of the galaxy. Behind him, Sailari stood silently, watching. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes were calm. Next time, she said, I'll do it before they cut the ship. Jason looked up, surprised. You could have done it earlier. She nodded. I didn't want you to see what I really am. He sat up, wiping grease from his fingers. And what are you? She walked closer, her violet eyes glowing faintly. I was trained as a seer, she said softly. Not a warrior, not a queen. My people don't rule by weapons. We rule by truth. Jason raised an eyebrow. Doesn't sound so bad. She shook her head. It is. Because truth is dangerous when your people live by lies. She sat on the floor beside him. In my world, seers are chosen at birth. We are connected to the ancient source. It lets us feel minds, machines, even emotion. Jason listened closely. But I asked questions they didn't like. She continued. I said things others were too afraid to say. What kind of things? I said our war was wrong, that we should not use minds as weapons, that power must have kindness. Jason nodded. Let me guess. That didn't go over well. She laughed, short, sad. They said I was unstable, unfit. I was removed from the seer temple, my name was erased. Then they sold me, first to nobles, then to slavers. She touched her collar mark, the skin still red. I've been passed between masters like an object. Jason clenched his jaw. You're not an object. She looked at him. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Sailari tilted her head. Then why are you the only one? Jason didn't answer, because he didn't know. They sat, in silence for a moment. Then Jason reached into a storage bin and pulled out a thin silver disc. I scanned the mercenaries' comms before they ran, he said. Want to hear what they were told? She nodded. Jason placed the disc in the console and hit play. A cold, static-filled voice spoke. Target is Class S, hybrid seer variant, dangerous, not to be allowed near networks or high-tech systems. Retrieve alive but suppress memory if needed. Terminate human. Sailari's face tightened. Jason frowned. You were on a classified list. She spoke slowly. Hybrid seer variant, that's not my species name. Jason said, that means someone altered your DNA, enhanced you. She stood suddenly and walked to the engine room window. They didn't just sell me, she whispered. They built me. I'm not just a seer, I'm a test. Jason followed her. Why? For control, she said. They wanted to create someone who could feel everything but follow only them. But you didn't follow, Jason said. No, she replied. And they erased me for it. Just then, the ship's AI beeped. Incoming transmission. Encrypted source. Jason opened it. A fuzzy face appeared, human, older, nervous. Jason Keller? You don't know me, but I'm a medical tech on Thalar Station. We intercepted a bounty request on your ship. Jason leaned forward. So? What? It's marked black level. That means no law, no court, no trial. Your passenger, if she's who I think, she's not just an escaped slave. She's the key to ending a quiet war that's been running behind the scenes for years. Jason glanced at Sailari. The tech continued. There's a rebel outpost, 2 systems away. If you bring her there, she might be able to stop all of it. The message cut out. Sayalari was already heading toward the nav controls. Jason followed. Are we doing this? She stopped, turned slowly, and looked him dead in the eyes. You asked me what I am? I'm the secret they tried to bury, and I'm done hiding. As Jason entered the course into the nav, Sayalari touched the ship's wall, her fingers glowing. For a second, the entire ember light hummed with her heartbeat. She was no longer waiting to be rescued. Now she was choosing to fight back. The ember light flew through dark space, past dying stars and shattered moons. Jason sat in the cockpit watching the rebel outpost slowly appear in the distance, a floating metal ring hidden inside a nebula storm. The ship's comms buzzed. Unknown vessel, state your reason or turn around. Jason leaned forward. This is Jason Keller, independent salvager. I have someone the galaxy needs to hear from. There was a long pause. Then a voice answered. Docking approved. Bring her in. We've been waiting. Inside the ship, Sayalari stood before a mirror. She wore a black flight suit Jason gave her. Her long white hair had been cleaned. Her eyes still glowed softly. She didn't look like a slave anymore. She looked like a soldier made of light and memory. Jason walked in behind her. You ready? She turned, expression calm. They won't believe me. He shrugged. That's okay. You'll show them. They stepped off the ship together. The rebel base was dim, powered by old generators. Rusted hallways echoed with footsteps and whispers. A group of armed guards met them. One of them, a tall human woman named Tara Vex, stepped forward. We scanned. Your records, she said to Jason, then looked at Sayalari. But we couldn't find hers. Because they buried her, Jason replied. Tara crossed her arms. So tell me, why are you here? Sayalari stepped forward. I was born to be quiet, she said, but I'm not quiet anymore. They entered a secure room with data terminals and scanning tables. Tara motioned toward one. If you want us to help, we need to know what you are. Jason nodded to Sayalari. Only if you're ready, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the scanner pad. The machine buzzed, then froze. The screen blinked in red and blue. Alert, Class S hybrid, seer gene active. Unauthorized type. Memory suppression detected. Everyone in the room stepped back. Tara's eyes widened. That's not just rare. That's illegal science. Jason whispered. They tried to hide you by deleting your classification. Sayalari pulled her hand back, her voice steady. They tried to erase me, but they didn't know. Memory is not only stored in the mind, it's in the body, the soul. And now, she paused. I remember everything. Suddenly, alarms blared. Jason spun toward the screen. What now? A rebel rushed in. Black Ops ship just dropped out of warp. No ID. It's jamming our signal, Tara shouted. They followed her. Jason grabbed Sayalari's hand. We have to get out. No, she said. What? She turned toward the main deck window, her eyes glowing. I'm tired of running. Outside, the enemy ship opened fire. The station shook. Lights flickered. People screamed. Soldiers scattered. Sayalari walked to the center of the command room and dropped to her knees. Jason yelled, What are you doing? She looked back once and whispered, Ending it. Her hands touched the metal floor. A pulse of light spread from her fingers. It crawled through the walls, the consoles, the AI core, and the defense grid. Every screen on the base lit up, showing her face. She spoke through every speaker on every channel. They called me nothing. They sold me like trash. But I am not a tool. I am not a test. I am not a secret to hide. I am Sayalari, and this is my voice. The station's weapons suddenly surged with power. Turrets turned and locked onto the Black Ops ship, energy built in the barrels. Jason ran to the window. How? Tara said. She's syncing with the base. She is the system now. Outside, the enemy ship tried to warp out, too late. The weapons fired, a flash, a roar. Silence. The enemy was gone. Back inside, Silari opened her eyes. She looked drained. Jason ran to her, caught her before she fell. "You did it," he said softly. "No," she whispered. "We did." Later the rebels gathered. Tara addressed the room. "We've just seen something the councils don't want us to know. That someone they threw away is worth more than any of us ever guessed." She turned to Silari. "You're not a prisoner anymore." Silari stood, holding Jason's hand. "I never was," she said. "I was just waiting for someone to remind me." In a small room that night, Silari sat alone. Her fingers touched her stomach, and for the first time, she smiled. "I'm not just a weapon. I'm a beginning." The rebel base was quiet. The attack had passed. The fires were out. The bodies buried. But the memory remained of one woman standing alone, glowing like a star, protecting people who had once doubted her. Now they called her something new. The ghost voice. She wasn't just alive, she was rising. In the medical bay, Silari sat on the edge of a low bed. A healing patch glowed softly across her shoulder. Her eyes were half closed, but her mind was alert. She was listening, to whispers in the halls, to thoughts not spoken, to hope, growing in people who had lost everything. Jason entered quietly, holding a metal box. "Brought something," he said. She opened her eyes. "More gear?" He smiled. "Better?" He placed the box beside her and opened it. Inside was a folded cloth. When she unwrapped it, her breath caught. It was a new uniform, smooth black with silver lines, strong fabric, fitted armor along the arms and chest. A soft tag on the shoulder read, "Name, Silari. Status, Guardian." Her fingers moved slowly over the name. "Guardian?" she whispered. Jason nodded. "They want you to lead the rescue program. For others like you, lost ones, hybrids, escaped minds." She shook her head slowly. "I'm not a leader." Jason sat beside her. "You already are." Later, in the base's main hall, dozens of rebels gathered. They didn't cheer, they didn't salute. They simply stood as Silari walked into the light, wearing the uniform. She walked with her head high, her white hair glowing softly in the air. Tara, the base commander, stepped forward and offered her a sealed data crystal. "This holds all files we've recovered on hybrid suppression projects," she said. "Names, labs, codes." Silari took the crystal. Her hands didn't shake. "I will find them," she said. "I will free them." That night, as the stars passed silently above, Silari and Jason stood outside the base, on a long balcony overlooking space. The wind was cold. The moment was still. He asked, "Why did you really smile earlier?" She looked down at her hand resting over her stomach. "Because I know," she said. Jason blinked. "Know what?" She turned to face him, eyes glowing. "I'm carrying life." His breath caught. "You're sure?" She nodded once. "It's not just a feeling, it's a truth inside me." Jason stepped closer. "But is that even possible?" She looked up at the stars. "They said I was a failure, a tool, a weapon. But something inside me has always been more." She placed his hand gently over her belly and whispered, "Now I'm creating life." Jason was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled, wide, proud, a little scared. "Well," he said, "guess I'm not just a salvager anymore." She looked at him, head tilted. "What are you now?" He touched her face. "A builder of futures." In the days that followed, the base transformed. New refugees arrived, young ones with strange powers, silent survivors with no names, old hybrids who hadn't spoken in years. Silari met every one of them personally. She didn't ask what they were. She asked who they wanted to become. The council that once erased her now faced questions from every system. Protests broke out on noble worlds. And across the galaxy, a quiet movement began, one that didn't need armies, only truth, and the memory of a woman who was sold for nothing, but rose to mean everything. In a distant chamber, one council leader slammed a report onto the desk. She was supposed to vanish. A second replied, voice trembling. She didn't vanish. She became legend. The world where it began no longer existed. The auction floor was gone, burned down during a border war. The slavers were dead, their records erased. But Sayalari still remembered it all, every metal bar, every cold stare, every moment someone called her nothing. Now she stood on a different stage, not in chains, not in silence, but in front of a crowd that had come to hear her speak. The day of the gathering. The great Unity Hall of Velex 9 was packed. Delegates from over 60 worlds had gathered. Scientists, council members, ex-slaves, survivors, humans, hybrids, and even former bounty hunters had come. The central platform was shaped like a star. Bright lights shone from above. The galaxy was watching. On every screen, her name glowed, in bold letters. Sayalari, survivor, seer, hybrid, mother, guardian. But she didn't walk alone. Jason Keller stood at her side, their hands linked, and in her other arm, wrapped in a soft cloak, she held her child. Small, warm, sleeping peacefully. Boy born of pain, made with love. The room went quiet as she stepped up to the speaker's platform. Her voice, strong, calm, and clear, filled every corner of the hall. There was a time when I thought I had no name, no voice, no worth. But I was wrong. She looked down at her son. They called me Lot 57, a number, a thing to be bought. But a human gave me a name back. He didn't rescue me. He reminded me that I was never just property. And today, I am done being quiet. The story that shook the stars, she told them everything, about the Seer Temple, about the memory suppression projects, about the slavers who traded minds like machines. She showed them data recovered from rebel archives, gene codes, broken children, whispered orders from rich planets. Some delegates cried, some turned away in shame, and some former power holders sat frozen. But Sayalari didn't stop. I speak for those who can't, for the girls thrown into cages, for the boys programmed to obey, for the ones who think silence is safety. I survived. But survival is not enough. We must build something better. And the baby that broke every law. When she revealed the child in her arms, hybrid class, born naturally, without medical labs or genetic permits, the hall gasped. Miracle. A violation. A warning. But Sayalari saw none of that, only a future. He is not a weapon. He is not a lab test. He is ours. And I will not let anyone measure his value by bloodlines. Jason stepped forward, holding a small pendant. This, he said, is his name. He placed it on the child's chest. Kale dot, a word from 2 languages, human and seer. It meant born free. The vote that changed everything. The Galactic Assembly, shaken by her speech and the evidence, took a vote that same day. They abolished the genetic ZRV classification. They opened sealed records of hidden experiments. They promised reparations. And for the first time, they gave hybrids the same rights as any other citizen. Some still opposed it, but they were outnumbered, outspoken, and now, out of time. What came after Sayalari didn't return to war. She returned to the stars. With Jason and Kale, she built a floating refuge station, the Emberlight Sanctuary, named after the ship where her life changed. It wasn't big, but it was enough. They took in runaways, forgotten ones, silent survivors. Sayalari didn't call them broken, she called them beacons. Every month, her face appeared on small village screens, telling her story. And every night, children fell asleep, dreaming that even if they were called worthless today, tomorrow, they might be someone who saves the world. Final scene. The next generation. Years later, a small girl with half-metal eyes asked Kale, "Is it true your mom was a slave?" Kyle, now a teenager with white streaks in his dark hair, smiled. She was, he said, but only for a while. What happened next? He looked out the window, where stars shimmered in the black. She remembered who she was. Down the hall, Sayalari sat alone, older, stronger, softer. Jason walked in and kissed her forehead. She whispered, "Do they still remember?" He smiled. "They don't just remember. They follow you." "They sold me for 1 credit," she said. "But the price of my voice shook empires." And when the stars told stories, they didn't speak of kings or armies. They spoke of a quiet girl with glowing eyes, who rose from a cage and taught the galaxy what a life is really worth.